Happy to be joined with my special guest this week, actress, model, writer, producer, Victoria Vertuga. How are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Doing good. As we were talking right before we started, I actually just finished watching your new series, DisGraced, for the second time. So really excited to talk about it. But I feel like, if you've done any interviews recently, this might be like old hat at this point. But I do have to ask, but how have you been handling this whole COVID crisis? Because I've been talking with several people, the interviews I've done since this whole thing happened, and how they've been dealing with it. So how have you been dealing with it?
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy, crazy times for sure. Obviously, my industry is totally on pause right now. So that's a thing. But what's been really nice is there's been a lot of generosity coming out from casting directors and from agents and managers even, and from industry people just kind of offering opportunities for everything from like Zoom classes to open calls and general meetings and stuff. So it's been really cool to see kind of the generosity of spirit of people during this time, which has been amazing. It's been good for me to do like a lot of the housekeeping stuff that I generally put off doing because I just don't have time for it, updating my website and all that kind of stuff that isn't really super sexy and fun. And then obviously one good thing is I'm a writer, so I don't need to be around people to write, which is great. So I can polish those scripts and kind of be productive in that way. But it's weird, every day is different. Some days I'm okay and I'm productive and whatever, and some days it's just you're not really feeling it. It's obviously we're going through a crazy time, and it's a bit of a mourning that we're all kind of going through for life as it was before. So some days you're just not feeling it, and I think that's okay too. But yeah, I'm doing my best to be productive and keep it moving and do the things that I can and take advantage of the opportunities that kind of come up.
Yeah, and I think really that's the only thing that you can do. And I was talking about this with somebody the other day, especially when it comes to writing, like you mentioned a second ago. I have a feeling that whenever this whole thing ends and we get back to whatever the new normal will be, because that goes into a whole separate discussion. But
of course, no one is quite sure what that will be, right?
TBD. Yeah, right. But I think once things get back to some type of normalcy, I think we're going to see a huge surge in creativity, especially when it comes to, because like you said, if you're a writer, you can still write from home.
Yep.
So you'll have all these people with different projects, and I think you're just going to see a surge of, all types of, pilots, shorts, things like that. And I'm personally really excited about it.
Oh, agreed. I think people are going to be chomping on the bit too to get back to doing what they love and with a renewed kind of vigor and energy and enthusiasm for it, right? Which will be great. So I agree with you. I think that it'll be really cool to see what people have come up with. I mean, already, right? Just what people are sharing on social media and fun little things that you're seeing. People are being really creative, and that's fantastic to be able to do that during this time.
No, for sure. So kind of walk me through the beginning of what is it that made you want to pursue a career in the entertainment industry? Is it something that you fell in love with at an early age?
It definitely is. It's something I've done my whole life. I come from a family of like creative musicians and all kinds of people. We used to put on these like elaborate talent shows every summer at my grandma's, and we would do like songs and dances, and she would have a play and she would cast all the cousins in a play, and we would do all this crazy nonsense. So I loved it, and I performed my whole life. But I kind of fought it as far as pursuing it as a career goes, because it is, obviously it has its extreme challenges, and it is so unstable, and I thought that stability would be really important for me. So when I first graduated, I actually worked on the business side of entertainment, and I was hoping that would kind of be a nice halfway point, or like a way to kind of combine them both, where you have the stability but also you're still working in the entertainment industry. But it really wasn't. I really honestly did not enjoy that at all. So I'm glad that I did it, because it kind of was the impetus for me to actually go forward and do what I really wanted to do and pursue what I really loved. So I'm glad for that experience for sure.
And what exactly did you do as far as the business side of entertainment goes?
So I went to USC, which is a fantastic school, and they have so many cool entertainment kind of focused programs or whatever. So my major was called music business. So it was basically, I had a built-in business minor, but it was a degree kind of on the music business, because I also actually write songs, random fun factoid. So I did that, and then I had a minor in communications in the entertainment industry. So I actually worked for Warner Chappell, which is part of Warner Music Group. It's like the publishing arm. So publishers are basically to songwriters what a label would be to an artist.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of worked in that capacity with Warner for about a year, and I also then moved over to doing like music licensing for TV. So I worked for about 2 years in the entertainment industry, like on the business side of it, before leaving to act full time.
Well, it's interesting because, people, like, they think of movies and they only see the performing side of it, like the acting, directing, and people don't even think of the business side when it comes to
gosh, and
movies, music, all that
so
stuff.
elaborate. Yeah. Oh, there's so much going on. I mean, I think that's such a bigger part of it, right? I mean, production is only this like small segment of what's really happening. Whether you're producing movies or making music or whatever, there's so many things going on behind the scenes. So yeah, the business is side of things is like this huge behemoth for sure.
No, it's they're juggernauts. They're absolutely juggernauts. So once you decide, okay, I'm going to give the acting thing a try, how is it that you got your foot in the door to doing it? Because if I remember reading correctly, you started on Days of Our Lives, right?
Yeah, that was my first TV thing. So I actually did. I was really lucky when I first started. I did commercials, and I did a lot of commercials. I worked a ton, and that's kind of good and bad, right? Because it's like, oh, this is easy. I can make this happen. But then the commercial side of things really kind of went through a drastic change in the recent years, as far as fewer things for your average actor, more things being for spokespeople and celebrity type basis for the brands, and also fewer nationals running as long, so kind of like change the scope of things that way. And I obviously, no one really, well, maybe some people do, but I definitely wasn't like, I want to be an actor so I can sell shampoo. You have other goals for sure. So I went and kind of switched my focus on really trying to focus on film and TV. And so then Days of Our Lives was the first thing I did, which was very cool. Soaps are very interesting. They're very much their own thing. It's a totally different vibe on set and a different way of filming, because it's one take for everything pretty much. So you kind of like just show up, you do your blocking real quick, rehearse it once, boom, take, next, and you're moving on. So it's nice because it's very short days for sure, but it's also like, pressure to perform, which is cool. And the same year that I first did TV, I also was able to be on Dexter, which is awesome. That was like the first show that I was on that I was a fan of. So that was really cool because I watched it at home. I was like, oh my God, I'm opposite Dexter, and like I'm in Dexter's bedroom, and like what the hell? It was really cool. So so that's just grinding, auditioning, that's kind of how it comes about.
It's funny you mentioning Days of Our Lives. Like, you think of how like frequently soap operas put out episodes. Like, I think they only take holidays off, like Thanksgiving and Christmas.
Oh yeah, they're exactly. And like I said, because part of the reason they're able to do that, or part of the reason they film the way they do, is so that they can do that, which is why they're only doing one take of everything. So they kind of film like in a week. They break it up by location. So they'll be filming for like the next 5 to 7 episodes, like everything that happens in the diner and everything that happens at whoever's house and everything that happens at the hospital. They kind of film by location and like boom, 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 get through that stuff. But yeah, they're it's crazy. Soaps are like, they're filming, they're moving, they're hustling.
That's hilarious because I've wondered about that for years. Because like my mom grew up watching soap operas, and I was like, how do they do all this stuff in such a short amount of time? And now here we are, like, 25 to 30 years later, and now I know.
The mystery has been revealed. And that kind of also explains why the acting is kind of not really something that people are like, oh, the acting is so amazing on soaps, because they don't have they don't have the 18 takes to get it done. They have so much dialogue to remember too. Like the they don't call them series regulars on soaps, they call them contract players. They're doing so many episodes a day, right? So they're trying to get their lines, and they're trying to whatever. So yeah, it's not the best environment to do like the most amazing acting performances. So I think that's partly kind of why they get a bad rep for the acting as well, just because they're monsters. They are just churning out content,
It's something, you mentioning acting, something that I've noticed that a lot of actors seem to do. Once they get, acting roles and they get experience under their belt, they tend to branch out into other aspects of the industry. Writing's one, directing's usually one, and, you did the same thing with DisGraced. So what was it that made you want to branch out into that?
Yeah, I think I can't speak for everybody, but I know for me, a lot of it has to do with control. Not to say I'm a crazy control freak, but I am definitely type A. But as an actor, there's so little of it that is under your control, right? Everything from whether or not you get the audition to whether or not you book it to how the quality is of the final thing that you've done. Like, you're just one little piece of this giant machine, and you have so little control over the rest of it. So for me, it was really satisfying to step into the writing and producing side of things, to actually have control over that kind of stuff, to set the tone for my set and to write the role that I want to go out for, so I'm not playing hot blonde number 3 all the time, So like, just to really be able to have some say and some autonomy, I think was huge for me. So that is kind of like one of my favorite thing about stepping over to the writing and the producing and the directing side of things, is to really be able to have more control over the finished product.
Well, because you essentially get to, create the sandbox that everyone else gets to play in, especially if you write the story. Like, you create the puzzle that then everyone has to put together.
Exactly, which is awesome. And it's great because I think what I found too is like the more things that you know how to do in this industry, the better you can be at whatever it is that you're doing. So just the more of like a what's the word I'm looking for? A sympathetic, like an understanding collaborator you can be, because you know all the various pieces of the puzzle. You know how everyone fits together and what they're going to need to do their job, and it just makes you better at what you're doing. So acting, makes me a better writer, and like directing makes you a better actor. It's like it's all related, right? Which is really cool.
Well, that's something I was curious about too. Is did your experience as an actor help with you writing your stories?
Definitely. I mean, especially for something like this too, where it's drawn so much from personal experiences, right? So obviously I'm drawing from my experiences as an actress in this industry, which is a huge part of it. But yeah, just in general, I feel like acting is great. I mean, on the one hand, on one level, I'm just able to read so many scripts. Every year I'm reading so many pilot scripts. I'm reading so many features. Every time I audition, I'm reading as much as I can, trying to get the full script for things. So I have so many scripts available at my disposal that I'm able to read, which is great. So I have a very you absorb all that stuff, even if you're not actively doing it yourself. It's just something that it's seeping into your pores and your subconscious, and you're like absorbing it, right? And then also just I know what I like as an actor, what makes it easier for me to do my job in the writing, and little pet peeves I have when I get a script, I'm like, oh, they're doing this, that I don't want to do as a writer. So it definitely benefits you that way too. It's all also very much similarities in terms of character and goals and obstacles in their way. When you approach that as an actor and you approach that as a writer, there's definite similarities in that kind of aspect of the storytelling.
Right. No, absolutely. So moving on to DisGraced, we mentioned at the very beginning of the show, how did you come up with the idea for it? And walk me through like how you got it made and how you came up with the idea for it.
Yeah. So, me and my writing partner, Eric Williford, we had been working on a bunch of scripts up to that point, just like a bunch of pilot scripts and half hour and hour long and whatever. And we really kind of wanted to have that satisfaction of completing something. Do you know what I mean? Like actually seeing it all the way through production and doing it ourselves and getting to like share it with people and put it out there. So we wanted to do a web series just because I feel like it's so much easier to get that out to people, and the little short bite-sized chunks. It's easier for people to consume in this day and age when we have no attention span and people are looking for content and stuff. So we always kind of conceptualized it as a web series for that reason, because it'd be just easier to kind of like get the finished product out. And then as far as the concept goes, Eric has been hearing about my insane stories, as an actress in this business for so long. And we kind of just had the idea of her being someone who had a little tiny taste of success and then lost it, because so there's something about that that's like so rich and fun to play with. It's also just interesting too, how as an actor, like I mentioned earlier, you're just one piece of the puzzle, right? But if something bombs, it's like so often the actors that get blamed for something bombing. So that's an interesting thing to play with as well. So we kind of basically then just mined my experiences. I created this like insane spreadsheet of all my really worst auditions and experiences in general. And it was really kind of hilarious to dig all that stuff up and look at it on paper like, oh, wow, there's been some crazy stuff. And a lot of that, I totally suppressed and like forgot about because I'm trying to have some kind of self-esteem in my life. So it was funny to dig that stuff up and just kind of see what we thought would play best, for these episodes, what we could work with. So yeah, it was kind of simultaneously hilarious and horrifying. Both. And then as far as filming it goes, another great thing about being an actor is that I know tons of actors, right? So I from class, from projects I've done, from auditions, met tons of people. So I, as much as possible, like to cast people that I already know, because you know what they're going to bring to it. You know that they're trustworthy. You know the vibe they're going to bring to your set, which is equally important too. You really want to control the tone of your set and make sure everyone's fun and positive and all that stuff. So we pulled from people that I knew as much as possible that we cast. There were some roles we had to cast that ended up being amazing too, and that's great. The great thing too is every time you do one of these, every time you make a project and produce something, you just have a broader audience to pull from next time. More people that you're like, oh, they weren't right for this thing, but they were amazing and they auditioned for that, and that's amazing. And we also were people were so generous with their locations, and we were able to use a lot of awesome locations that people gave us for free. And we and Eric have produced a couple shorts in the past, and we had a great crew. Our director of photography actually directed 2 of the episodes as well. We'd worked with him on multiple things. And so our crew was fantastic, and it came together really nicely. It was so much fun. It was really honestly like, sets are so interesting because they have such their own personality and their own vibe, and you just feel it the minute you step onto it. And this was just so much fun. Everyone was having so much fun and just being so generous, and it was an absolute blast. Like we really, really had an amazing time on this project.
Well, you can tell you guys had fun through watching it, and I think that's what makes projects fun to watch, especially ones that I know probably don't have that big of a budget. that are almost like passion projects in a way. But you can tell, like when you're watching actors perform, you can tell when they're into it and when they're having fun.
Yes,
And I could tell that through this series. So that made it even more enjoyable.
Good. I'm so glad. Yeah, our cast was so great, and that was, I think that was kind of the sentiment from a lot of people too. They really enjoyed their roles, and so like you said, that there's no way that doesn't show up, right, when people are having a good time. So that's been awesome.
How long did it take you guys to shoot it?
So I believe it was either 7 or 8 days. I can't remember at this point, but we had about 7 or 8 days of filming. We shot in like 5 locations, I think. So we repeated locations for like 2 different days of filming. Yeah, and they were not super crazy long days, but they were pretty packed. And yeah, we pumped it out.
Do you have a like specific story, like maybe a funny on-set story from DisGraced that you'd like to share? Like one that might stand out above all the others?
Oh, there were so many, but let's see. So when we were filming Hollywood Hearts Rob's Part 2, which is kind of like the fake E type thing with Derek Dasher or whatever, we'd filmed most of that on a previous day. And then when we were filming the Once Beautiful Woman episode at that really cool workspace, we found out that there's this rooftop and it was really cool upstairs. So we were like, oh, there was like a scene that we wish we had filmed on the rooftop instead. So we just asked, like, could we use this? And they were like, yeah, of course, go ahead. So we went up at the end of the night during sunset and filmed the like dramatic Michael Bay slow-mo whatever shot up there. And we had to get up there by this little fire ladder, like, up on the side of this really tall building. And so here we are, like in a chain, carrying all the heavy equipment up for our director of photography, like praying that we don't drop it or fall on there so we can get up to the rooftop and film it. And then there was an LAPD chopper that happened to be flying by while we were filming, and we're like, oh no, are they gonna like bust us or what's going on? And the guy just like waves at us from the chopper and goes about his business. We're like, oh cool, we're golden, never mind. So yeah, it was cool. It was just a nice combination of things happening to work out for us, which was great. But yeah, and totally worth it because I love those shots from up there.
No, that's fantastic. No, you mentioning the fake like True Hollywood Story, trailer or whatever, that was the way that was put together. I really liked. That was one of my favorites of that entire series.
Yay, mine too. I love, honestly, that episode from start to finish, like from conceptualizing it to writing it to actually shooting it to editing it. That was like one of the most fun. It was just so fun from the beginning to end. And it's not always that like when you love something so much in the writing stage that it matches your expectations when it's done, but it totally did. Like I love it as much when it's finished as I did writing it, so I love that episode. I'm glad you did too.
One of the more subtle things that I actually liked about it too, and I learned this because I'm currently doing a masterclass on screenwriting.
Yeah.
So in the
awesome. I love masterclass.
Now it's been great so far. Like I'm almost done with the first like section of screenwriting. It's just a lot of videos, but they're a lot of fun. Totally. In the first episode, when I think the character's name was Natalie, was giving her speech outdoors, and then your character and your brother's character are talking inside and mentions, oh, she has 450 Instagram followers. And then she comes in and says, oh, well, I have 500,000 Instagram followers. Then the second episode, you're talking with your friend and she's like, oh, she has 650,000 Instagram followers. I was like, that's genius that you kept building on it.
Yes, every time we talk about it. And those are the kind of things as a writer that you put in there and you don't know if anyone's going to notice at all, but like you think it's funny, right? So I'm glad you noticed it. Because yeah, every time she's mentioned, every time her followers are mentioned, it's up, 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 up.
Yeah. Well, it's almost like, a running gag throughout the whole thing.
Definitely.
And I really enjoy that. Plus, I liked that the second episode was all done like in one shot.
Thank you for noticing that too. Yes, it was a wonder. That was actually one that I directed, and I had a bunch of ideas for what I wanted to happen in that episode, all of which required locations and budgets that we just did not have. We couldn't make it work, and so I really wanted to have movement in that episode, and so that's kind of why we came up with the idea for the Wonder, because it's like, how can we create movement in a way that doesn't cost us a ton of money or require these crazy locations too. And so that's why that came about. And yeah, that was really fun to do. We had to rehearse it, choreograph it, whatever, and then just come in and film it.
Yeah, when I did my first short a couple of years ago, the climax of the movie takes place at what's essentially like a college frat party. And we did the whole thing as a Wonder. And it was a lot of fun to do. Like it was a little challenging, especially because it was my first movie, but it was a blast to do. So I always like seeing oneers like that. So that was really cool to see.
That's great. It's funny. I could tell like the film nerds among my friends, because the ones who are like, oh, it's a wonder. I'm like, oh, they noticed, I mean, the average person watching it is like, I don't know what you're talking about, but that's cool. The film nerds are appreciating the wonder.
Yeah.
So that's
Well, I even wrote in my notes, episode 2, increasing Instagram number and wonder.
Nice.
So
nice.
So there you go. So
thank you for getting all of our little inside things that we weren't sure if anyone would pay attention to. So I appreciate that.
Well, and it's that, like, to me, the stories of like the inner workings of filmmaking, whether it's like the acting side, the directing side, like stories within stories have always appealed to me for some reason. So I think that's why the story, really jumped out at me, because it's the next short that I'm writing is something similar. It's a little bit more of a drama, but it has to do with a similar type of story.
Yeah.
So no, I'm
with you too. I like that too. And it's, like, a good satire is always enjoyable. You know what I mean? If it's like based in truth and spot on, I love it. So yeah.
No, that's fantastic. So do you have plans for a second season?
So when we did this, we kind of did it just because, like I said, we wanted to be able to actually produce something, get it out there, share it with people, kind of use it as a calling card to kind of show our POV and our style and what we can do. So we would definitely be open to doing a second episode or even adapting it to like a half-hour version. But we probably won't do it on our own dime again, if that makes sense. So if opportunities arise where we can get the funding from streaming services or whatever, what have you, to do it again, we would definitely be open to it. We actually had a 10-episode season, and we weren't able to film all of them just because of budget reasons. So we cut it down to our favorite 8. So we have 2 episodes that we didn't even film already written. We have obviously tons of ideas for other things that we could do, but it's kind of a thing that we will do it if an opportunity arises, but we won't like force it, because we actually have a feature-length horror film that we're working on next that we were planning to produce later this year. Obviously TBD on that, but that was kind of next up on the slate. So yeah, that's a long answer to say maybe.
Well, it's just interesting because you did leave it to where, like, it could conclude there, but it also leaves a little bit open for a second season. So
definitely, yeah, always got to leave that open, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So as we start to wrap up here, something I always like to ask actors, really anybody who works in the entertainment industry, what is one piece of advice that you have for someone who wants to work in your industry?
Yes. I think I was thinking about this the other day too. I think for me, something that I can share is the power of no, both saying it and being able to hear it. I think there's so much of a tendency to be afraid to say no to something because we don't know where the opportunity is going to lead and what's going to come from it and whatever, that we just say yes to things that really don't serve us, right? That we don't really care about or aren't really inspiring us or aren't really going to be helpful in any way. So I think it's really important to be strategic with your time and energy and say yes to the things that you really want to say yes to. And similarly, not to be afraid of the word no. And now I'm like, please tell me no. I want everyone to tell me no so that I can move on to the person who might say yes. So I think it's really empowering to just not be afraid of the word no.
That's probably the most unique piece of advice that I've ever gotten. And
cool.
that actually sounds like a great book discussion too. The Power of No.
A self-help book, The Power of No.
Yeah. That's hilarious. And last question, do you have any website or social media that you'd like to plug so the listeners can follow you?
Yes, absolutely. So you can follow me. I'm just at Victoria Vertuga, my name, everywhere, Twitter, Instagram, all that stuff. And then the series, for you guys to check it out, is just at DisGraced, the series. So we're on YouTube, we're on Vimeo, we're on Amazon Prime. Just Google us and you'll find us on that worldwide interweb.
Fantastic. Well, Victoria, thank you so much for taking the time to do this interview. It was great.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for having me. So much fun.